Good day, everyone. Good day, Mom. So, we are the last group to present, and our topic is a continuation to the group 4, the soul making into local arts. Along with my co members, we will be reporting on the three remaining classification of soul making, the textile, soul and space, and symmetry art. So, as we go on our discussion, I would like to give some review of what is soul making. So, soul making is a major role in art production. It plays a significant role in the creation of art. And when we say soul making, here is some examples. We have crafting stories. Also, we have symbols that connect people. So when we say crafting stories, it is a masterfully crafted pieces of art authors pull from the depths of their imaginations. So let's proceed to the third classification of soul making. We have this textile. So textile is the process of creating something using fibers. When we say textile arts, are arts and crafts that use plant, animal, or synthetic fibers to construct practical or decorative objects. So here are some examples of such textiles, including tapestries. Also, people use textiles to make objects that signaled status or commemorated important events like military uniforms. So, there are three methods of making textile art. We have sewing, weaving, and knitting. Many cultures around the world have distinct method of making textile by using materials available to them, and some have become famous over the centuries. Today, many contemporary artists work with fibers and textiles in new and exciting ways. And let's look at a few methods of making textile art. First, we have sewing. So is the craft of fastening or attaching objects using stitches made with a sewing needle and a thread. I know that it is a very common method that we usually does in our home. It can be done through our hands and machine. Next, we have weaving. The craft or action of forming fabric by interlacing threads. So I have here an example of weaving. Okay, next we have knitting. To make a garment, fabric, etc. by interlocking loops of one or more yarns either by hand with knitting needles or by machine. And so to give you some insights about this method, I have here another example. So that's the example of knitting method. When we say textile art, it has an examples. First, we have tinalak. Tinalak is a traditional hand-woven cloth indigenous to the Tibili people from the Cotabato region. The cloth is woven from abaca fibers and is naturally dyed from bark, roots, and certain plants. It is woven in order to celebrate and pay tribute to major life events such as birth, life, marriage, or death within the community. And to give you some other insights of tinalak, I have here my co-members to discuss the tinalak process.
Good morning, ma'am. Good morning, classmates. Today I'm going to discuss about the tinalak process. Making the tinalak is a tedious and requires numerous steps for a single cloth to be completed. Step 1 is harvesting of the abaca and the stripping of the fibers. The harvesting of the abaca requires physical brawn, and this important task is designated to a Tibuli man. Before harvesting begins, they sets up a prayer table and says a prayer to Tufudalu. If I'm not mistaken, Fudalu is their spiritual guardian. They offer prayers for guidance. The harvested fibers, it takes at least 24 hours or until they are adequately supple. The fibers are grouped into wrist-size bundle. So after stripping the fibers would have to be combed immediately. So as of to remove the sap that causes the darkening of the strands, it is hung from house beam and combed with the fingers where the weaver selects and separates the fibers according to their thickness. So during the selection of the fibers, the whiter and finer threads found in the inner stalks are separated from the coarser ones. The fibers are spread on a beam and left to dry inside the house. So after air drying, the next step is connecting or tembung the fibers of kidungun from end to end. So once it dried, the women individually connect the fibers from end to end by tying tiny knots. The ends are cut with a suktibong in order to make the connections invisible. So suktibong is a small weaver's blade. So then bundled together by winding the threads around a bamboo warp frame as a set of three and placed in baskets. So it can take a weaver up to 2 weeks to be able to complete the standard length needed for the tinalak. So the third step is setting or sim down the fibers on the loom for knotting. So once the raw materials has been prepared, the connected fibers that make up the warp are set on gumusumoy guno or loom. So this special loom is composed of a comb-like wooden frame with teeth pointing upwards to preserve the fibers' length and silkiness. So after the fibers are smoothed out, they are placed evenly and closely spread on the gunusmoy and held in a place by tiladay or wooden bar that is led across and directly over the fiber. So after the fiber sitting on the loom for knotting, designing of mebed and knotting fibers prior to resist dyeing is the next step. So when we say mebed is a design process which begin on tying frame. This delicate task of knotting the warp for the resist dye method determines the design of the tinalak. This is a tedious and intricate process that can take up 2 to 5 weeks as knot after knot is tied into place. So the tying is done by first grouping fibers into 4 or 5, so depending on the intricacy of the design. So the next step is gathering and preparing the natural dyes, dyeing the warp and untying knots. So, a tinalak is defined by using the three traditional color, black, red, and white. In coloring the abaca strands, the Tiboli women make use of natural dyes found in vegetation around their area. This process of resist dye is commonly known as the ikat method that is shared with the neighboring countries of Indonesia and Thailand. So in colors, black dye or hitem derived from the leaves and berries of kinalum tree. Caulking fiber takes 3 weeks with fire and leaves and berries replaced every 2 days. So in black, to make the fiber into black, must to have 1 sack of leaves of kinalum tree and then place it into a large pot of water and boil. So once fully absorbed with the deepest black, the tied fibers are removed and rinsed in running water through the stream until the water runs clear. So in reed dye or hulu, taken from the roots and bark of shaving of the small leaf luco tree. 1 kilogram of the lucus bark and roots are boiled in water for another half hour. The bed is then added and allowed to boil from 5 days to 1 week. So once done, the bed is removed and rinsed thoroughly until the water runs clear and then air dried. So in the natural creamy white or ichor color of the abaca, strands are removed to reveal its natural color. So the next step is setting the dyed warp on the blackstrap loom. So when the tinalak weaver works, she waves in a rhythm. So when we say weaver, these are the females who inspired by their dreams, and their dreams will reflect to the pattern of tinalak cloth. So after passing the shuttle through the threads, she pushes the threads to tighten using a flat piece of coconut wood made smooth and shiny with use. She does this 3 times in order to ensure that the waves are tight so that when we help up against the light of the tinalak blocks as much light from passing through. So the waving stage can take around 14 days to a month depending on the character of the fiber and the complexity of the design. So after the tinalak has been fully woven, the fabric is thoroughly washed in a cold river so that the entire piece can be stretched following the water flow. Once it has been slightly air dried, the tinalak is then beaten repeatedly with a hard and round wooden stick in order to flatten the knots. So this helps to smoothen its surface in preparation for varnishing. So this is the example of setting the dyed warp on the blackstrap loom. So varnishing the surface of the tinalak. So this is the final phase of producing the tinalak involves varnishing the surface with a sake or cowrie shell while the fabric is still moist. The shell is attached to one end of a bamboo stick with the another end attached to a hole in the ceiling of the longhouse to help apply additional pressure to the procedure. This does involve a strong body as the shell is firmly rubbed repeatedly on the tinalak in order to flatten it and produce an even coruscating gloss. Once the burnishing is done, the tinalak is washed in cold water as a steady flowing stream after which it has hung and dried when completed. The tinalak is stored by rolling it and wrapping it with a separate cloth to protect it from damage. So this is the finished product. Now let's move on to the Tivoli arts. First is the different kinds of decorative combs. Suwat blakang or suwat bilakang made of bamboo. Suwat timbuko decorated with a mirror. Suwat elmimot decorated with colored glass beads. And suwat hanapak made of brass. Second is the different kinds of decorative earrings. So kawat is simple brass rings, bikitut round mirror surrounded by colored beads. Nomong is chandelier types earrings made of brass links and beads. Bikuku made of triangular shells and kowol or biklaw combination of earring and necklace. The third is the different kinds of decorative necklace. So, hikef is choker of red, white, yellow, and black beads. Elmimot, multi-stranded necklace with red, white, and black beads in graduated sizes. Lieg or leek, brass with beads and hawk bells. while in the fourth is a different kinds of decorative girdle. Hilot is a chainmail brass belt with a square buckles, and hilot elmimot is different from the ordinary hilot in that the dangling strands are not brass chains but strings of beads. So, and last is the different kinds of performance arts. The courtship dance, the kadal hirayon or wedding dance, the flaggy libon or flaggy bird dance, kadal unok or unok bird dance, islaong, kinabang or hidgar dance, tao suyo or muk combat dance, kadal timulong lubo or victory dance, kadal higulong or broken heart dance, kadal bihigulong or harvest dance, kadal iwas or monkey dance, kadal bilila or bird dance, the kadal tabaw, kadal slang bitunok, kadal taho, and madal tibuli or the tibuli festival dance. These dances involve shuffling steps and swooping movements of the arms and hands, usually incorporating a malung or kerchief.
Good day, everyone. I am Karilmi Liubet, and I will be discussing the art of dagmay. So dagmay is a hand-woven textile made from abaca fiber. Its colors are extracted from bark, seeds, fruits, and other natural dyes. Where does the art of dagmay comes from? So it is from the Mandaya indigenous people here in the Philippines at Davao Oriental. Some factors about dagmay art. So dagmay involves a mud dyeing technique wherein tribe members soak their tannin-dyed yarns into iron-rich mud for days. And then the Mandayang women then weave the fiber into intricate figures and patterns depicting their folklore and belief. Next is the use of dagmay. So since we already know the fact that dagmay art is a kind of clothing designed by the Mandayas people, so it has been used and has been worn as a woman's skirts, and sometimes they use it as blankets, and sometimes they use as to wrap the body of the dead. Moreover, based on my research, each designs, however, carries with a certain story. And most of the traditional designs, which can easily date back to over 100 years, have come to them in their dreams. In these slides, I will be showing some dagmay's design and clothing. So as you can see, there is a dagmay's barong for men and a dagmay's gown for women. Moreover, these are some clothing design of dagmay's art where I saw it on the internet. And these will be my last slides. I hope you tend to be familiar with the art of dagmay, and thank you for listening.
Good day, I am Krista Jane Barbanida of Group 5. Today, I am going to discuss Pisyabit Siputangan of Textile Art. So, Pisyabit. It is a hand-woven cloth of silk or cotton and square in form with geometric pattern. A textile that is woven by the Tausug tribe from the Sulu archipelago. Sulu is the most recognized community of Pisyabit weavers. This is also where the late master weaver Darhata Sawabe, a Gamaba awardee of 2005, the National Living Treasure, came from. Pis means head cloth and siabit means geometric design. A multicolored woven cloth originated in Sulu archipelago where one of the largest Muslim ethnic group can be found. And in some articles, you can read that
It is influenced by foreign trade textile, and one of it is the Indian. Green here can be understood to represent the increasing shift of the Tausug to the Islam belief, seeing as green is the color of Islam. It is traditionally worn by Tausug men, used to decorate household, used as head covering. It is a headdress of the Tausug men that symbolizes the wearer's rank in the society. In the contemporary period, even women wear the cloth as an accessories in traditional function. Next is the siputangan. It means headcloth, a square material most popular for its richland complex design, including optical illusion to make profundity in the patterns. Yakan tribe, an indigenous Muslim group in Basilan, is a tribe where good in making siputangan. The siputangan is worn by Yakan, woven in different ways depending on the occasion. So Ellen Ellen is for everyday wear, haptabyan for going to market, ginuna sa pagkawen, worn like a veil when attending a wedding. It uses bright, bold, and often contrasting colors in big symmetrical patterns. The inspiration for designs came from island living and Islamic sacred geometry.
Good day everyone, I am April Jikilab and for today I am going to discuss about the forms of textile art which is the inaol. Inaol, which means woven in Maguindanao, is a hand-woven tapestry fabric with geometric designs. As a status symbol, it is revered as an object of barabangsa, which means dignity. The inaol is commonly used in the malong, the multitasking tabular fabric. So as you can see, these are the examples of inaol cloth. With inaol, Maguindanao do not only provide us with colorful and intricately designed cloth. With it, they give us a piece of their culture, something that symbolizes how committed they are, as well as in preserving what they have. The inaol considered as a barabangsa. It describes royalty, dignity, and nobility. In previous years, the use of inaol in Muslim Mindanao was a status symbol and worn with pride and royalty. So, inaol is very important, particularly in Maguindanao people. The weavers use cotton and rayon silk threads inserted on big looms that can handle huge volumes. And the process starts with arranging the threads to determine the colors, the quantity, and the length of the malong. The threads are put on the wheel, spun, and inserted into the loom's comb for the design. To assure quality of inaol, the weavers are tasked to make just one inaol tapestry per creation. So these are the three types of threads being used in weaving. First is tanor, which is cottony, silky rayon, and katiyado. Rayon and tanor are often combined in malong called mistiza. The colors and tones used are just as reflective of Maguindanao culture. Red signifies bravery, green signifies peace, black for dignity, and white for sadness. Personally, the inaol means endless opportunities not just for the Maguindanaons but for the entire Philippines.
So, we are now on our fourth classification of soul making into local arts, which is the soul and space.
Good day, ma'am. I'm Muntasar Ata from Group 5, the reporter of Soul and Space. Torogan. Torogan literally means sleeping place in Maranao dialect. It served as the community center for both decision-making and social gathering of the Sultanate. Torogan is the house of power because it was one of the Sultanate symbol of power. Sultan means the nobility people. That's why kapag ikaw ay nobility na tao, you will be the sultan of that community. It was the core of Maranao traditional statecrafts, customs, art, and culture. One of the traditional Maranao art is found in the Torogan, which is the panolong. Parts of Torogan. First, Tokod. It is the post of Torogan that composed of hard tree trunks of huge girth. Each of its stands have a assemblage of huge stones half buried in the ground. It protects the house in times of earthquake. So ito po yung tinatawag na tokod. Second is dorong. It is a multi-purpose ground space created under the wooden beams. It is an open space under the main house. It is called poro, which means upper. So, ito po yung tinatawag na dorong. Third is barimbingan. It is a planks made at the lantay or flooring held together by wooden floor joists called dolog. So, ito po yung tinatawag na barimbingan. Sorry. Panolong. It is the most distinct part of the Torogan. These are curved in beams. So this part of the Torogan is a traditional art of Maranao or Muslim culture. As we can see, the serpent design, ito po, pale front, while the side use the Paco ochre. So, ito ang Paco ochre. Some of Torogan in Lanao del Sur. First is the Yawan Torogan in Marawi of the late Sultan Condeng. These are the first Torogan in Marawi, the late Sultan Condeng. It is originally built around the 1740s. It stood witness to the various episodes of battles in Lanao. It also listed by the National Historical Commission of the Philippines as a National Historical Landmark. Second, Kawayan Torogan. The Kawayan Torogan owned by Sultan sa Kawayan Makaantal. In 2008, the National Museum declared it as a national cultural treasure. It still stands today at more than 100 years old in the quiet town of Marantao. In fact, it is the only habitable Torogan left in Lanao del Sur. Lastly, the Bantog Unayan. The Torogan used of Sultan or Datu in the lakeside town of Ganasi. It stands over 100 years. As we can see, nasisira na po siya. But even though it lies in ruins, you can easily spot the impeccable craftsmanship used in this massive house.
Today, I am going to discuss the Ifugao Valley, the history of Ifugao House. The Ifugao Valley or native house is the first prefabricated house in the world. According to Utley Bayer, it has been subject of many articles as it is considered to be one of the most ingenious and nearly perfect architectural constructs made by man. The no-nail house. This type of dwelling does not make use of nails. Inside the Ifugao house, the one room commonly known as fail. Ifugao house structure. The exterior of the house seems to be nothing but a pyramid resting on the four posts, while the interior space is enclosed by slanting walls and ceiling that appears to be spherical that are formed by a loft. The four types of Ifugao huts: the abong, the inapal, the bali, and alang. The abong is the simplest dwelling without walls, only roof. The inapal, slightly elevated from the ground. Third, the bali. This is elevated from the ground by the four sturdy posts about 10 to 12 feet high. In Ifugao house, this Ifugao bali is primarily used as the family's dwelling unit. Lastly is the alang, or the granary house, which is usually located near the rice field because their houses were harmoniously located with the contour of the rice terraces. Next, the characteristic and function in Ifugao house. The Ifugao house is sturdily crafted of timber from amugawan trees raised on four posts, which was buried 50 centimeters below the ground and locked in with stones. The Ifugao house have three functional levels. The ground floor, the posts have wooden disc which was called the ulilang, which means to prevent rats from entering the house. The second floor for the living quarters and the social affairs, eating, cooking, and sleeping are all done in this area. And the third level, which was used as the granary. And there was the patty, which means a shelf that extends from the wall boards outwards to the underside of the roof. It also served as the storage area and as a structural support to the roof. And lastly is the tianga, which is the effort of the people within a neighborhood to dismantle, relocate, and reassemble a house into its new location.
Good day, everyone. I am Fibrin Rose Langita, and I will be discussing today about the art of Bahay Kubo. The Bahay Kubo, or Nipa hut, is a type of stilt house indigenous to the cultures of the Philippines. It is also known as payag or kamalig in other languages of the Philippines. It often serves as an icon of Philippine culture. Its architectural principles give way to many of Filipino traditional houses and buildings that rose after the pre-colonial era. These include the colonial era or Bahay na Bato, which is a noble version of Bahay Kubo with Spanish and some Chinese main architectural influence and has become the dominant urban architecture in the past. It is the Filipino variant of the whole Austronesian architecture found all over places where Austronesian had historically inhabited from the Pacific to the Madagascar, each having their own distinct variants through cultural evolution and influence around them. These include the Malaysian Rama Melayu, Indonesian Rama Adat, Maranao's Turugan, and Ifugao's Bali. And these are the example of Bahay Kubo. The Filipino term Bahay Kubo roughly means country house from Tagalog. The term Bahay is derived from Proto-Malayo Polynesian public building or community house, while the term Kubo is from Proto-Malayo Polynesian. The term Nipa hut, introduced during the Philippines-American colonial era, refers to the nipa or anahaw thatching material often used for the roofs. However, not all bahay kubo use nipa materials. And these are the characteristics of bahay kubo. We have bubong or roof, silong, silid or living space, dingding or wall, dungawan or windows, batalan, and construction material. Bubong or roof is the traditional roof shape of the bahay kubo, is tall and steeply pitched, ending in long eaves. A tall roof creates space above the living area through which warm air could rise, giving the bahay kubo a natural cooling effect even during the hot summer season. Silong is raised up on hardwood stilts which serve as the main post of the house. Bahay kubo have a silong. The Tagalog word also means shadow area under the living space for the numbers of reasons, the most important of which are to create a buffer area for rising waters during floods and to prevent pests such as rats from getting up to the living area. Silid or living space is the main living area is designed to let in as much fresh air and natural light as possible. Smaller bahay kubo will often have bamboo slat floors which allow cool air to flow into the living space from the silong below, in which case the silong is not usually used for items which produce strong smells. A bahay kubo may be built without an attic or ceiling so that hot air can rise straight into the large area just beneath the roof and out through strategically placed vents. Dingding or walls. The walls are always of light materials such as wood, bamboo rods, or bamboo mats called amakan or sawali. As such, they tend to let some coolness flow naturally through them during hot times and keep warm in during the cold wet season. Tungawan or windows. Bahay kubo are typically built with large windows to let in more air and natural light. The most traditional are large awning windows held open by a wooden rod. Sliding windows are also common, made either with plain wood or with wooden capiz shell frames, which allow some light to enter the living area even with the windows closed. Batalan. Some bahay kubo, especially those built for long-term residence, feature a batalan or wet area, distinct from other sections of the house, usually jutting out somewhat from one of the walls, sometimes at the same level as the living area and sometimes at a round level. The batalan can contain any combination of cooking and dishwashing area, bathing area, and in some cases a lavatory. Construction materials. The walls of the living area are made of light materials. Posts, walls, and floors are typically made of wood or bamboo and other light materials. The thatch roof is often made of nepa, anahaw, or some other locally plentiful plant, thus making it easier for the nepa huts to be moved if needed. And this is the cultural significance of Bahay Kubo or Nepahat. A Nepahat is an icon of Philippine culture as it represents the Filipino value of bayanihan, which refers to a spirit of communal unity or effort to achieve an objective. Lastly, the last slide that I will show you is the art of Bahay Kubo, which is the Bahay Kubo song. A famous folk song by Kubo often sung in schools which mentions a small house surrounded by vegetables. It is very cultural but misleading song as not all Bahay Kubo are small and surrounded by vegetables. Some early and original variants are even palace or mansion-like and used by native royalties or in the colonial era used by captains and governors. Some original mosque and churches in the Philippines are even in Nepa hut style. So that's all. Thank you for listening.
Good day to you all. I am Meros the Alcocer and I am discussing about Bahay na Bato. Bahay na Bato, Tagalog, literally house of stone. It is originating during the Philippines Spanish colonial period. Since the arrival of the Spanish conquistadors greatly influenced the development of building design and construction, including the development of Bahay na Bato. Thus, it is an updated version of the traditional Bahay Kubo because its design has evolved throughout the ages, but still maintains the Bahay Kubo's architectural basis which corresponds to the tropical climate, earthquake-prone, and environment of the whole archipelago of the Philippines. Architectura mestiza, also known as ancestral house or bahay na bato. During 17th century, architectura mestiza not only is an evolution of the bahay kubo through its building materials use, but also in transcending the essence of a Filipino's characteristics and how it gives importance to nature through its design. Also, bahay na bato form merged the features of indigenous and Hispanic building traditions. The house was also the outcome of the profound social change following the ascendancy of Ilustrados who demanded new kind of dwelling. Social change expressed the wealth, cultural attainment, social status, and etc. That's why, as what we can see today, that those house that made up of stones was a wealth or may kaya sa buhay. Thus, before the Spaniards came, our traditional house was a bahay kubo that made up of bamboo, nipa, and others. But now and then, this notion was changed. Next, bahay na bato design also took into great consideration the safety and well-being of its user. Therefore, this is mainly exemplified by its two most notable features, the stone ground floor and the elevated wooden quarters. The stone ground floor upgraded the elevated steels of Bahay Kubo to withstand earthquake, yet still protect the occupants from the seasonal flooding. And elevated wooden quarters, aside from keeping the occupants dry from seasonal flooding, the living quarters are strategically elevated to catch the winds which are stronger and higher elevations. Next, why bahay na bato created? So, maintains the bahay kubus architectural basis which corresponds to the whole archipelago of the Philippines. Spaniards and Indians back then in the country became aware of the environmental situation that the Philippines are in. Back then in 1600, the Philippines experienced a lot of earthquakes that shattered not only the city but also the houses within it. Next is influenced by the foreign. Thus, created was a hybrid of Austronesian, Spanish, and Chinese architecture with American influence during the American era, supporting the fact that Philippines is a result of these cultures mixing together. So, here are the examples of bahay na bato in Philippine architecture. Other preserved examples of bahay na bato are also found in Taal, Batangas and Buwak, Marindoque in southern Luzon, Iloilo and Carcar, Cebu in the Visayas, and Dapitan, Zamboanga del Norte. In conclusion of this topic, the bahay na bato is a product of economic progress and cultural adaptation. From the bahay kubo to the bahay na bato, it was an ended a process of different societal and cultural changes that happened in just a progression from simple structures to complex ones, and is also connected and based on different impositions the society has made upon.
And here we go on our last soul making into local arts classification, which is the symmetry art.
Good day once again. I'm Montasar Ata, the reporter of Symmetric Art, Oker or Okel. Symmetric is a mathematical operation or transformation that result in the same figure as the original figure or its mirror image. So it means that both sides or an object are the same or balanced. One of the example of symmetric art is ochre or okel. The term ochre or okel is defined as a geometric and flowing design and motifs that are usually rendered or carved out in hardwoods, artworks, and infrastructure. Ochre motifs is an art that represents the indigenous originality and scale of the Maranaos. Ochre or okel comes from Malayan word that means okit. In Tagalog word it stands for to curve. It is usually seen rendered in hardwoods, brass, wall paintings, infrastructure, and other Maranao and Muslim related artworks. These art usually symbolize prestige and power in the Maranao and Muslim related culture, just like the panulong in Torogan. As we discussed in our previous slide, panulong is the most arresting feature of Torogan that has a design of Paco ochre. Just so you know that ochre is a Maranao pronunciation while the okel is Maguindanao. There are the two classes of ornamental design of ochre, which is ochre adato and ochre abay. Ochre adato or gentleman design refers to the scroll, while ochre abay or ladies design referred from geometric forms. Ochre abay is based on the Maranao women's art which are usually seen in the weavings of malongs, blankets, mats, and basket that consist complex displays of geometric shapes. If ochre abay are the art of Maranao women, but ochre adato are the art which are made by the Maranao men. Their works are mostly being used in farming, musical instruments, armor, weapons, boats, gongs, and etc. One of the example of their work is the panolong in Torogan House. So these are the elemental forms of ochre adato. And this is for ochre abay. In our modern world, ochre is widely being used as a design in infrastructure, walls, cladding, gown, dress, and clothes. People use this design in order to revive the cultural heritage of the Philippines because of the fast-paced modernization that happening in this country.
That's all for our discussion. Thank you for listening. Stay safe and God bless.